going to quickly go over how to spot when you need to restring your bow, as well as how to restring your bow. So generally speaking, string wax is going to be your best friend. You usually want to make sure your string is going to have that almost like slight tacky feel. You don't want to go overboard with it, but you don't want it to be dry either. One of the ways you can tell when it's time to replace a string versus just using bowstring wax is looking at the top of your strings. So as you can see here, I've actually kind of tried to fix it a few times, but it's starting to really fray and snap up here, along with down here. I don't know if you can kind of see that one. In addition to, when there's multiple frays in the same area, that's kind of one of the triggers too that you need to be mindful of, as in you need to replace it versus just put some wax over it. 1 or 2 frays in random spots, no big. Even a couple frays, no big. But it's when this certain area is starting to get, you can tell, weaker, is when it's time to restring your bow. First and foremost, bowstring replacement. You do not need this many. Namely, the reason why I might switch out, even if a bowstring is fine, is if I'm doing something different and I need a different knock fit, because that's something we'll get into in a later video, but knock fit is extraordinarily important. The next bit that you're gonna need is knocking points and knocking pliers. This bit is string silencers. Again, personal preference, you do not need them. If your string is not pre-waxed, get some wax. It's literally like $3, I think, if that. And last but not least, this is my favorite piece of equipment. In fact, if you were to tell me I was stranded on an island and I could only take like 3 supporting pieces of equipment, this right here would be my, like, okay, in my boot, #1 thing. In fact, I could probably, it's so important for a couple of reasons. First, brace height. When you're restringing your bow, you want to make sure the string, when it's strung on the bow, is the proper distance in order to maximize your power, velocity of the arrow, all the things, etc. Second, it helps with you putting on knocking points, which you'll see in a second. So, all right, let's get into stringing a bow.
I'm gonna ride the lightning, feel the thunder, till the darkness pulls me under. Gonna fly on wings of fire, breathing good, Lord lifts me higher, singing oh when they call me on, singing oh when they call me on. I'm gonna ride the lightning.
Now you got the bow strung. The next step, of course, would be going outside and shooting a few arrows to see, making sure it's not knock high or knock low after you release. Because if it is, you are going to need to go back and adjust these knocking points accordingly. Brace height. So strings do stretch. Just be mindful of that when you're putting your string together. Usually, you can Google recommended brace height for bows, and just be mindful that strings will stretch and you'll probably have to add twists. Always unstring your bow and twist from the bottom, the small loop. So remember, the top loop had the top loop is the larger one. You slide that on first, and then you put the bottom one on, and then you'll string the bow by slipping the top loop over the top of the top limb. If you have to add twists to, if your brace height string is too close to the bow and you need to make it a little bit more tension and you need to add twists, unstring your bow and twist from the bottom in the direction the string is already twisted. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Happy shooting.